Hello everyone and welcome back to Will a Wonderful World for episode 10. Now this is absolutely insane to me. I've put over 10 hours into this game for YouTube and I have made it to episode 10 of a series. I just got done uploading the final episode of a story about my uncle and that felt incredible. I know I'm not getting much traction, but that doesn't matter. I want to be able to make YouTube a career, and I want to have a loyal few who watch my content, and I'm making it for a loyal few. I don't want to end up being like, this is a bad example, but I don't want to end up being like PewDiePie, where once he started to get famous, he changed, and not in a good way. Yes, he got more famous and he was making way more money, but he changed. He wasn't the same. He was nowhere near as good of a Let's Player. So, that being said, let's just move on. We still haven't seen what exactly is going on with the dog god saying something about erasing my memory. And then he started to talk about when I was a little kid. How exactly is that going to come into play? We haven't, like I said, we haven't seen anything of it yet, but maybe we will in this episode. I don't know, we'll have to see. Like I said, and as I promised, there were these 4 letters. One for Chang Yongmin. Ooh, one for Kang Bakya. What else we got in here? One for Li Wen. And one for Alicia. Interesting, Li Wen and Alicia. Interesting combo. I think we're going to start over here with Chang Yongmin and Kang Bakya. Alrighty. It was 10 p.m. There weren't many people in the station. I ran down to the basement, pushed open the door to the armory and yelled, "Excuse me, I need to check out a handgun." I had been assigned to this position for quite a few days, but I still hadn't got a firearm. Or gotten a firearm. I had heard that the office was very bureaucratic and inefficient. I suppose people had been telling me the truth. The custodian in charge of the armory slowly turned his face towards me. It looked like he hadn't shaved his wrinkled face for a long time. All of his facial hair was wet with tears and snot. What? Has he been crying for some reason? I noticed the TV behind him. He was watching a very popular TV drama, The Descendants. I had to speak at the top of my lungs to tell him that I needed a gun, just not to be drowned out by the hysterically bawling heroine on the TV. Although he was still quite invested in the show, the old man hadn't forgotten his duty. He then explained the rules without holding back his tears. While holding back his tears, god dang. To check out up to and including 2 guns, please fill out the green B2 form and have it signed by the lieutenant of your unit. The firearms will be available immediately. To check out more than 2 guns, please fill out the pink C15 form and have it signed by the captain of the station. The weapons will be available in 5 hours. I took the form. I tore the pink C15 form into pieces. Sir, you've got to be kidding me. 5 hours? It's really a matter of life and death. I just need a tiny, tiny, tiny handgun. I slammed my fist on the desk out of frustration. Don't slam the desk. The custodian pulled 2 napkins out of a box, then blew his nose and wiped his tears away. He turned around and refocused on the TV screen with the box of napkins still in his hand. The heroine had just been diagnosed with a terminal illness. It was the hero's turn to bawl hysterically. I squeezed the torn pieces of paper in my palm and tossed them into the trash bin by the door as I stormed out of the armory. I let out a sigh. Fine. It should be okay if I just go ahead without a gun, right? I rushed out of the building and hailed a cab and headed towards the port. Buddha would surely bless me. Chang Yongmin. Well, I'm gonna try my best, Chang. I'm gonna try my best. Let's move on to Kang here. It was 5 past midnight. Warehouse 23, Port of Busan. I realized that I had been backed into a corner. because the people who had come in from the gate were not Lieutenant Kim Jong-ho and his men from Unit 3. Lieutenant Kang! Long time no see. It was my old rival, the leader of the Gangmun group of the Musun gang, Choi Yo-han. The drug cases around this area had always been handled by Unit 1 and my Unit 4. Drug smuggling was one of the main sources of income for the Musun gang, so Choi and I had plenty of dealings with each other. Long time no see it is. I did see your son a week ago. He looked pretty good. Oh, by the way, I heard that you've been in a bad mood recently. Would you like me to get you some antidepressants? That won't be necessary. But you were right. I haven't been doing too well. That's why I bought myself some new toys to chill myself up. I want you to share the fun with me, Lieutenant Kang. ... Everything went quiet for a brief moment. Suddenly a loud orchestra of metallic noise erupted in the warehouse. Who the hell is just shooting somebody up? What? I could see that the containers were riddled with bullet holes. There was even rice pouring out of some of them. And M134. Okay, those bullets are getting annoying. Choi Yo-han, that was indeed impressive. He was my son. My lovely son. And you fucking blew off half of his head. Today I'll blow your entire body into fucking smithereens. I crouched on the ground and covered my head with my hands. My Glock 43 had run out of ammo earlier. This couldn't get any worse. There was a toy gun on the ground. Where did the toy gun come from? A toy gun against an M134? I couldn't help but chuckle at the ridiculous thought. But apparently someone else had come up with the same idea. The muscular man picked up the toy gun and came out from behind the containers. I didn't have a chance to stop him. Everything happened so fast. The toy gun couldn't possibly take on the M134. I saw numerous bullets fly in and out of his body. Well, I mean, it was a toy gun. What did this guy expect to happen? And by toy gun, do they literally mean like a cap gun? Or do they mean like a BB gun? Or like a pellet gun? The ground behind him was quickly covered in a bloody red mess. No. How did it end up like this? Kang Bakya. Wow, both of their letters were pretty quick. Let's see here. Oh, they can only go sequentially. So, what if he doesn't... So I can't move this. What do I do about that? He has to take the form, and then there's a toy gun on the ground. Is this just showing me more mechanics? I guess, because I don't think I can move this over here. No, I cannot, so... Okay, then. Ooh, let me see. Here, I'll do that. I'll switch those around. I don't know what difference that's going to make, but he's going to tell him about the C-15 before he tells him about the B-2, so... both their stories are going to change, so let's see what happens. The machine gun slowly stopped, and I heard lots of people yelling outside. I peeked out to take a look. Some men from the Gangmun group were holding down a pretty buff young man, pressing his head to the ground. His head was already covered with blood. Choi Yo-han grabbed his hair and pulled it back violently. I finally saw his face. Yo, if I remember correctly, isn't this the new guy in your unit, Lieutenant Kang? So he did make it over here with that toy gun for whatever reason. What a cute and silly one he is. He came all the way here to save his precious lieutenant without even bringing a gun. But... okay, I guess we'll find out what happened once we get over on Chang's side of the story here. Who do you think is cuter? Him or my son? Lieutenant Kang. Fuck you. The kid's nose and mouth were bleeding heavily and he kept mumbling through the blood. Lieutenant, don't mind me. Choi fired up the machine gun once again. The kid's fragile flesh was torn to pieces and pounded into a stain on the ground. Well, fucking Chang's dead. So that's not a good ending. Okay, I don't know what else we're gonna do with that. I didn't fucking want to mind you. What the fuck were you doing here? Didn't you know I meant to not fucking tell you about our mission at this goddamn place? And you, idiot, you didn't even bring a fucking gun? How would you defend your precious justice? Justice. What was the fucking point? Now that you're dead. I don't know, but damn. Chang is just fucking gone, I guess, now. Have it signed by the lieutenant of your unit. I looked down at the green B2 form in my hands, and I had an idea. I clutched the form in my hand and ran back to Unit 4, stopping at the lieutenant's desk. I put my hand on the handle of the drawer, and my heart was beating rapidly in my chest. This would be a huge mistake. Forging the signature? In all seriousness, this would be a crime. What the hell was wrong with me? Calm down and think. There must be another way. Speaking of which, I remembered seeing a toy gun at the custodian's desk earlier. Could that be useful? Something was definitely wrong with me. I let out a sigh. Fine. Should be okay if I just go ahead without a gun, right? I rushed out of the building and hailed a cab and headed towards the port. Buddha would surely bless me. Wow, but bad endings for both of them, so I can't... What if... Dang, let's see. Since these have to happen sequentially, and this has to be over here, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't have switched those around. That changes things. It doesn't change things for Kang, but it changes things for Chang. I know that's a little confusing, but let's see what happened here. I looked at the toy gun as if it was mocking me. I tore the pink form into pieces in a rage. The goddamned rules. Were these stupid rules more important than a human life? The custodian was staring at the TV now, and he paid no attention to me. I squeezed the torn pieces of paper in my palm and tossed them onto the desk. Then I stormed out of the armory without looking back. I let out a sigh. Fine. Should be okay if I just go ahead without a gun, right? I rushed out of the building and hailed a cab and headed towards the port. Buddha would surely bless me. Still a bad ending for both of them, and because I can't move any of this to this side other than this, the one that was already over here that made a bad ending for him, I'm assuming I have to go do Lee Win and Alicia's letters to change the outcome for these. I don't know why, but I'm assuming I have to. So let's start here. I guess we'll start with Alicia. Pills. If someone asked me what I wanted the most at this moment, I would say freedom. As for the thing that I wanted second most, I would say death. 2 months ago, a short and skinny old man had bought me from a human trafficking auction house and brought me back to his mansion. At first, I thought he was just like most of the other buyers who had only been looking for some exotic playthings. But I soon found out that he was much more frightening. His name was Money Jia, an infamous local millionaire in Hong Kong. Well, at least she's still in China. On the surface, he was the owner of a chemical plant, making his bucks from pharmaceutical research and development. But behind the scenes, he had been conducting drug tests on humans, and the tests were not just limited to medicinal drugs, but also experimental ones that were developed solely for the gangs, some of which were even from abroad. Wow, that's a long sentence. What he had spent in buying us was nothing compared to the profits he could make off of us. All of his test subjects were people he had purchased from the auction house. None of us had any legal status. Therefore, nobody would care who we were or where we had gone. It was like we had evaporated from the face of the earth. There were both men and women among us. Sometimes the women might get a little lucky compared to the men. If the girls were willing to become a concubine, they could be spared the fate of trying the more dangerous drugs. Rose had been one of the concubines. She had still died, though. I'd heard she had OD'd. After her death, her body was taken away like everyone else before her. This game is really starting to get fucked up, but I like it. She just disappeared without a trace. I would rather die from poison than become another Rose. The people who had made the same choices as I were all been locked inside the dungeon. Okay. I don't think the creators of this game have English as their main language. They had tied our hands and feet to the bedpost, with our bodies spread eagle. Everyone had been tied down in a separate room. However, the air ducts in the rooms were all connected. The air was filled with the smell of rotten flesh and death. Every few minutes I could hear horrifying screams coming from the distance. I had had a fever for the last couple days. I heard them saying that the drug they had been giving me was defective, and if my fever didn't come down soon, I would die. To make sure that they could extract as much profit out of me as they could, they'd assigned a new doctor to me. He'd been checking up on me every day. This doctor seemed more bookish. He might be a good man. In my haze, I tried to talk to him. He never responded. So I kept talking to myself. After setting up my IV, the doctor hung the bottle of medicine on a makeshift IV pole, which had been made out of a rusty water pipe. Oh, wonderful. Then his phone rang. He walked to the hallway outside and half closed the door. His medicine kit was near my pillow. There were 2 bottles in the corner of the kit. One with sleeping pills, one with poison. The doctor was still answering the phone outside. The day had finally come. Oh, she's not gonna kill herself, is she? If I could just grab that bottle, I could carry out the plan I'd had in my mind for a long time. The rope was loose. I grabbed the pipe firmly. I wiggled my left hand out of the loosened rope and reached for the kit. I grabbed the bottle closer to my left hand, the sleeping pills. I twisted the cap off with my left hand and poured the entire bottle into my mouth. Ugh. That would feel weird. It was so painful. I bet. I mean, you didn't have any liquid. You just swallowed a bunch of, like, an entire bottle of fucking pills. Then I lifted the pipe and smashed it down on my own head. What? What? Okay. I could finally end this life in hell. Carlos, I'm sorry. Your Alicia can't take care of you anymore. Goodbye forever, Carlos. I didn't know how long had passed. I was so surprised when I woke up. Wow, I'm just gonna move on. I had an oxygen mask on my face and IV tubes inserted into my arms. Some familiar guards and doctors were standing next to the bed. They had tied my hands and feet to the bedposts, with my body spread eagle. The air was still filled with that rotten smell. I closed my eyes in desperation. Heavenly Father, what have I done wrong? Alicia. Well, I'm a female. Thank you very much, but I appreciate the thought. Oh, I keyed. The simulation exam was only hours away, yet I had been lying in bed all night, unable to fall asleep. Very different situation. Her situation is very lighthearted, and Alicia's is very fucked up. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see the sketch that Mr. Wynn had drawn of me earlier. It was so beautiful. Maybe I should go to school early tomorrow, so that I could try to find it in the trash can. I got out of bed, walked across the living room, and grabbed a box of chocolate milk that Rocky had paid me. The moon seemed especially round tonight. I leaned on the railing of the balcony, watching the moon and drinking the milk. She's very romantic with her chocolate milk. That's very odd. Mr. Wynn's place was to my right. The light was still on. Ever since I had learned that Mr. Wynn lived next door, I would often involuntarily wander onto the balcony to watch the view outside. However, I had never seen him out here even once. The curtain was always closed behind the glass door to Mr. Wynn's living room. I couldn't see anything inside, except to tell whether the lights were on or not. It was almost 1 a.m., and the lights were still on. I didn't know that he could be up so late, despite his lights usually still being on when I had gone to bed in the past. What was he doing at this hour? It couldn't be because of what happened earlier today. It had been only a joke. I suppose that I should go apologize tomorrow. I suddenly heard a muffled sound. Then I noticed that his curtain moved slightly and saw a hand appear at the bottom of the glass door. It was Mr. Wynn's hand. Murder? Shut up. What was I thinking? I immediately called for an ambulance while I knocked on his door, but nobody responded. No one answered the phone in the manager's office either. I heard that people could pass out for many reasons, but the best opportunity for first aid only lasted for the first 5 minutes. For the first 5 minutes. Alliteration, man. It might be too late to wait for the ambulance to arrive. I grabbed a rope on the balcony and tied one end around my waist. I tied the other end to the railing. Finally, I climbed up the railing and stood on top of it, shaking. Mr. Wynn's balcony was approximately 1.5 meters away. Well, that's not that far. My own record in long jump was 1.72 meters, if I remembered correctly. I should be alright then. 1, 2, 3. Jump! The slipper had been tossed on the ground earlier. What? Damn it. I was so close to reaching the pipe on the other side. I was hanging between the 3rd and 4th floors. The rope tightened around my waist. Thankfully, it was strong enough to hold me. I could still make it. I held onto the rope for dear life, carefully untied the knot, and jumped onto the balcony on the 3rd floor. However, nobody seemed to be home. It took 20 minutes for the paramedics to get me off of the 3rd floor balcony. By then, it was already too late for Mr. Wynn. I watched helplessly as they carried him onto the ambulance. He looked like he was only taking a nap. I suddenly had a feeling of déjà vu, of the day I lost my father. No. No! Lee Wynn. What happened to Wynn? What happened to Wynn? Okay, whoa, we're starting to get convoluted here. So, the sequence only applies to the right side. I'm gonna go with this. I think this is good. I know things are gonna go good for Lee, but I don't think it's gonna be good for her to die. Okay. Okay, they're both changing. That's good. Maybe not for the better on Alicia's side, but I guess we'll have to see what's going to happen with that. The wind was strong that night. I held onto the pipe and climbed up to Mr. Wynn's balcony. This music is very epic, and I don't know why. Mr. Wynn had fallen to the ground in his living room. I could barely feel his pulse, and he wasn't breathing. I immediately ran through everything I had learned about CPR in my head. I put both of my hands together, placed them upon his chest, and began pressing. 1, 2, 3. I used as much strength as I could with every press. I just hoped that I wasn't too weak to save his life. After 30 presses, Mr. Wynn showed no sign of waking up, and he was still not breathing. I lifted his chin up and started doing mouth-to-mouth to him. 2 sets of mouth-to-mouth, followed by 30 presses on his chest. I kept repeating this routine. Mr. Wynn's forehead was covered with tiny drops of sweat. His wet hair was stuck to the corners of his eyes. Why won't you wake up? The time kept passing. It had been way over 5 minutes, but I wouldn't stop. Hope was like a flickering light on a single candle. I couldn't tell when it would suddenly go out. My tears and sweat were mixing together and falling on Mr. Wynn's shirt, drop after drop, making it all wet. A rough hand grabbed my wrist. Mr. Wynn's eyes slowly opened. I thought he was still going to be dead, honestly, and I was literally just about to say, holy shit, there's no way to save either of these people. I saved Mr. Wynn's life. I don't know how this is going to play out for Alicia. This is going to be very odd. I don't know what I can change around on her side. I guess I could change that the rope was loose so that she wouldn't be able to grab for the bottles. But then Lee would maybe fall. I don't know. We'll have to see after this. I didn't know why I cried. I must have looked horrible with my ugly crying face. A few more minutes later, the paramedics finally arrived. They asked what kind of first aid I'd given him. I suddenly realized what I had just done, and I couldn't get a word out. I just did that with Mr. Wynn, with our mouths, didn't I? This isn't what you need to be thinking about in this moment, Lee Wynn. The ambulance had taken Mr. Wynn away. The paramedics told me to bring some necessities for his hospital stay. I finally calmed down, and for the first time, I had the chance to look around Mr. Wynn's apartment. There were all sorts of paintings hanging on the walls. A seaside small town glowing in the sunset. A golden wheat field stretching endlessly. A rainbow crossing a valley through rosy clouds after the rain. They were all masterpieces. Weirdly though, according to the signatures, most of them were from over 10 years ago. A portrait of a woman attracted my attention. The woman seemed to be in her early 20s. Her long black hair spread out on a soft white pillow. Her sleeping face looked mesmerizing, even to me. Was she Mr. Wynn's wife? I remembered when Rocky had asked whether Mr. Wynn had a girlfriend on his first day. He hadn't answered the question. But why was he living alone then? Right. I should be collecting necessities for Mr. Wynn. Speaking of which, what did one need for a hospital stay anyways? Pajamas, underwear, toothbrush, toothpaste, towels, slippers, razor, face wash, napkins. I scoured the kitchen and the bathroom thoroughly. The only door left had to be the door to the bedroom then. I should be able to find a change of clothes in it. I pushed the door open. To my surprise, what was behind the door looked exactly like what had often appeared in my dreams. It was a graveyard. A graveyard of paintings. Torn apart, painted over, pieces so small that they were completely unrecognizable. The remains of various paintings nearly completely filled the room. In a corner of the room, some blankets lay on the floor with some clothes folded on top of them. Was this where Mr. Wynn usually spent the night? The room made me feel nothing but sadness and utter despair. They were so much alike, Mr. Wynn and he. He? Who's he? Who's he? What? You can't just... Okay. I wiggled my left hand out of the loosened rope and reached for the kit. I grabbed the bottle closer to my left hand. The poison. It was almost the size of half of my palm. I needed to hide it somewhere. I saw the slipper that I had dropped yesterday when I was having a seizure. You were... Oh, because of the drugs. Okay. It was close enough for me to reach it. The doctor came back from his phone call. I was still lying on the bed all spread out with my eyes closed and mumbling quietly to myself. Just like how he had left me. He felt my forehead with his hand, fiddled with the IV a bit and closed his kit and left. I opened my eyes when I heard the door close. The bottle of poison was still safely hidden inside the slipper. I know that as long as I do my best, my dream will come true. So she didn't kill herself. So is she gonna use that to poison someone else then, I guess? Okay. I don't know how her intentions changed just from grabbing poison and grabbing sleeping pills. I feel like it would have been the other way around. She would rather poison herself to kill herself and give somebody else sleeping pills to knock them out or to subdue them so she can do what she needs to do. That was odd. Alright. Rank S ending for both of them. We did get new letters, but I'm gonna come back... Well, I'm gonna try and mess with these real quick. And if I can't get a better ending out of these, then I'm just gonna skip this part and I'll just come back to those new letters. Buddha would surely bless me. Oh, okay. Things didn't change at all. I don't know what to do with those, so I'm just gonna come back and do these new letters. Oh, there's 3 new letters. One for Lee Wynn. One for Alicia. And one for Spotty. That's going to be the end of the stories for Spotty, it seems. And now we've got a branching path here for Alicia, but there's no dashed lines down here, so I'm assuming that's going to be new. Or that's going to be the end of his story. Sorry about that. So I'm just going to come over here and do Lee Wen's because it is on her own. I'm going to do this one letter, and then I think I'm going to end this episode. Sunday afternoon. The sun was warm, and the smell of the flowers was dancing in the early summer wind. I was standing in front of the exhibition center, waiting nervously. A few days ago, Mr. Wynn had fainted in his apartment due to exhaustion. Fortunately, I had found him in time. Otherwise, the consequences would have been inconceivable. He had given me a ticket to the art exhibition today, as a thank you. I had been so excited when I got the ticket that I had forgotten to ask if it was the only ticket he had. Or would he be coming too? Today also happened to be my birthday. I had not celebrated my birthday in years. But I specifically put on my favorite dress before I had left my apartment. As a matter of fact, I had never heard of the artist whose exhibition this was for before. To be better prepared, I had visited dozens of bookstores just to find a book of his collection. Even as late as last night, I had been looking up his work online for the whole night, and I hadn't gone to bed until it was almost daytime. I had set 7 alarms just to make sure that I wouldn't oversleep. At 1 p.m. the show had officially started. The line was getting shorter, but I still hadn't seen Mr. Wen anywhere. I took out my phone and hesitated, wondering whether or not to text him. Eventually, I decided not to. Another hour had passed. I couldn't stop myself anymore, and I sent him a text. The art show today is really cool. Thank you so much for the ticket, Mr. Wen. I'm in the gift shop near the north entrance right now. They have a lot of cute little things here. Are you coming today too, Mr. Wen? Another hour had passed. It started to drizzle. I sent him a text. It's raining. Remember to bring an umbrella with you if you're heading out, Mr. Wen. I wandered near the entrance, but I didn't want to walk too far away. Another hour had passed. There's a book signing at the west entrance right now. I just bought an art collection book. I think it's to be sold out soon. Mr. Wen, would you like me to buy you a copy? Another hour had passed. Mr. Wen, I'm about to head back. Thank you again. I waited until 5 o'clock, and he never showed up. Perhaps he only had one ticket in the first place. It was my fault for assuming too much. The rain had turned from a drizzle to a downpour. I walked home alone without an umbrella. I couldn't tell if it was because of the rain, but I cried. Lee Wen. Why are you crying, Lee Wen? It's okay, just because the teacher doesn't... I don't think there are any obvious leads by reading this letter. In this story, how does the difference between the west entrance and the north entrance have an impact on the result? Judging from this letter alone, you are right. We are unable to tell how they will impact the ending yet. But I would still encourage you to give it a try by switching their positions. Maybe then you'll see the effects in the new ending. Sometimes you won't know for sure without trying. So you mean that the clues might not just be hidden in the original letters, but they might also be hidden inside the other endings that we unlock? That's exactly right. Oh, this is getting even more convoluted. Okay. Let's see how this is going to affect the ending. I don't know how this is going to change anything, but I guess we'll see. I waited until 5 o'clock, and he never showed up. I took off the Sir Spotty mascot costume and gave it back to the staff member at the west entrance? What? How did that happen? The staff member who had to take off earlier for an upset stomach kept thanking me. Oh, so she was there. Okay, I see. He said that if he hadn't found a stand-in before 4 p.m., he would have lost his year-end bonus. The rain had turned from a drizzle to a downpour. I walked home alone, without an umbrella. So, made things slightly better, I think. Let's retry that. Hang on, I don't know how this is actually changing anything, and I think it's just purely experiment right now. So she's not going to be at the north entrance, so she's going to be... What if I switch that around? So she leaves before she texts him and says it's raining. So maybe she'll leave before it starts raining? I don't know. Let's see what happens. It was just past 5 o'clock. A garbage truck had a sudden flat tire on the road outside the north entrance. There was garbage everywhere. The staff of the exhibition center all put on their raincoats and ran down the stairs to pick up the trash. I decided to go help out since I wasn't doing anything anyway. Lots of people walked by and took pictures of me with their phones. I struck a pose cooperatively with a victory gesture. Oh, so she still had to put on the Sir Spotty costume. Haha, look at me, I'm the guardian of the environment, Sir Spotty. What? Guardian of the environment? It was already 7 o'clock when we were finally done, and the exhibition had been over for a while by then. My phone's battery had run out. In the end, I didn't see him. I took off the Sir Spotty mascot costume and gave it back to the staff member at the west entrance. The staff member who had to take off earlier for an upset stomach kept thanking me. He said that if he hadn't found a stand-in, okay, blah blah, lost his year-end bonus. Rank A, that was a lot better of an ending. I don't see how that's better. What if I bring this back up to the top so she doesn't put on the Sir Spotty costume? This is just completely experimental. I don't know how this is going to change the outcome at all. 6 o'clock. The rain had turned from a drizzle to a downpour. I was still standing at the entrance, waiting. The exhibition was over. My phone's battery had run. People were coming out of the exhibition center and raising their umbrellas. There were more and more umbrellas around me. Everyone's face was hidden behind one. I was slowly swallowed in an ocean of umbrellas, and I couldn't even see the road outside anymore. I crouched down. The rain kept falling. I couldn't tell if it was because of the rain, but I cried. B. I don't think I've tried this yet. No, I have not. Alright. So she still didn't put on the Sir Spotty costume. 6 o'clock, the rain had turned from a drizzle to a downpour. It was still in... Oh, okay, so she's in the costume this time. I was still in the Sir Spotty mascot costume, standing at the entrance. My phone's battery had run out. The exhibition was over. People were coming out of the exhibition center. Thank you so much today. You can get out of the costume now. Again, you saved my life today. The staff member who had taken off earlier for an upset stomach kept thanking me. He said if he hadn't found a stand-in, he would have lost his year-end bonus. Ooh, is it win? Is it win? Is it win? I was just about to pull the mascot head off of my head, okay, when someone bumped into me. I couldn't see anything with the head on. I only knew that I was falling down the stairs. Ouch, ouch, ouch. I finally stopped at the bottom of the stairs. I suspected that every bone in my body had been broken. Oh god, I hope that was... I was sure that I must have looked pathetic with the mud plastered all over myself. Are you okay? The voice sounded familiar, but I couldn't be sure because of the sound from the heavy rainfall. A powerful hand grabbed my arm and pulled me up. Is it Win? I took the mascot head off in a hurry. I saw in front of me that same casual outfit. He raised an umbrella over my head, but his shoulders were getting all wet. We ordered 2 cups of hot cocoa from the cafe on the first floor of the exhibition center and sat at a table next to the window. Wow, this is nice. This is turning really nice. The rain had become so heavy that we couldn't leave at all, but I was feeling like the luckiest girl on earth. He told me that the exhibition was organized for a friend of his. He didn't know I was still here until he had seen the text just a little while ago. So... he got the ticket for free. He didn't even pay for it. Cheeky bastard. There had been too many people at the entrance when he arrived, and he wouldn't have been able to find me if I had not been so eye-catching. So, it was his friend's exhibition. He hadn't planned to come with me. Lightning suddenly flashed outside the window and all of the lights went out in the cafe. A waiter came over to apologize. He lit up a candle and placed it on our table. Ooh, now it's like a little romantic dinner. Oh gosh. The outside view became clearer now that it was darker inside. He turned and looked outside the window towards the blurry greenish mountain far away. He suddenly changed the subject. That mountain is called Schwanglong Mountain. I probably said that wrong, but I'm going to say Schwanglong. In weather like this, you can see the most beautiful rainbow in the mountains when the rain stops. Have you ever painted it? I remembered the paintings in his apartment. The rainbow in his painting must be even more beautiful than the real one. But he shook his head. The most beautiful views can only live on in memories. I could see the candlelight flickering in his eyes. It was supposed to be the color of warmth, but I couldn't sense any temperature. A voice suddenly surfaced from deep within my heart, and it was overcoming my own self-control. Oh, what is she about to ask? I couldn't stop myself from blurting out the question. Mr. Wen, do you want to go home now? Sorry, I forgot, it is pretty late. Mr. Wen took his eyes away from the mountain and gave me an apologizing look, and reached for the umbrella next to our seats. No, not that. Could I get a picture with you? What the hell was I talking about? I pulled out my phone in a hurry, but then I realized that the battery had run out quite a while ago. Ah, how embarrassing. I wanted to crawl into a hole. Mr. Wen took out his own phone instead and handed it to a waiter passing by. So now she's gonna have his number, and he's gonna have her number. Oh gosh, this is... It's a freaking love story, man. I held onto the cup of cocoa nervously and smiled like an idiot. 1, 2, 3, cheese. Ah, let's take another one. Young lady, get a little closer to your boyfriend, please. What? Boyfriend? You don't understand. I mean, really. Before I could explain, the waiter had taken another picture. I turned my head towards him, and he was so close. The first thing I did when I finally got home was plug in my phone. As soon as I turned it back on, I received it. Oh wait, they already had each other's numbers. What am I talking about? She was texting him at the expo. Oh gosh. I feel like an idiot. Anyways, it was a photo. Later, I bought a brand new photo album. I printed the photo out and put it in the first page. It was the best birthday gift I had ever gotten. Wow, so that was the absolute best ending for her. I assume things went really well. Is that another letter for... That's another letter for Jimmy. Alright, well, like I said, I'm gonna end this episode here, and when we come back, we will have these letters. We will have the final letter for Spotty, a new letter for Alicia. I'm still not sure what this means. I don't know if that means it's a branching path based off of decisions that I made in this. Like, I could probably get a different outcome and go somewhere else. Because this is very linear. I guess unless I got the S rank ending, I wouldn't move on. That's why I wasn't getting any new letters before when I didn't have the S rank endings. And we got one new one for Jimmy that's solo. Now the one thing that I don't understand is they did say in the beginning that it's up to me what ending I want to give them. But if I can't move on in the game until I get an S rank ending, then what's the point of being able to get whatever ending I want? I mean, you know, other than for puzzle's sake. I don't know. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This ends episode 10, and so far, the farthest I've gotten in a series, other than completing the 4-episode series for a story about my uncle. And it feels amazing, guys. I'm not gonna lie, it's like a personal life milestone. I know it's nothing crazy, and, you know, I only get, like, up to 10 views max on these, but like I said, that's not what matters. Just the fact that I'm doing this and that I've been this dedicated and I'm putting this much work into it feels amazing to me. So, anyways, I'm going to end this here, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.